So, Dr. Jacque, welcome to the Pet Buzz today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Do dogs understand what we're trying to say something to them?
So our study measured what owners believe their dogs respond to systematically or consistently. So we didn't actually assess at what level dogs might actually understand specific words. What we were searching for was the full body of words they might respond to or different dogs might respond to in different contexts.
How did this research project come together? What prompted the study?
So I'm a developmental psychologist, so I typically study children and I study their language development. And I had a conversation with Catherine Reeve, who was a researcher in a dog lab in our department. And we talked about doing a study on language in dogs to see whether or not we could assess language in dogs in a similar way that it's done with preverbal children.
Then talk to us about that study with the protocol maybe you used, who was involved and how was the study conducted? And did you have some words and phrases that you wanted to use in your study particularly?
The way in which we study this is we give parents checklists of words that are commonly used around children that they might understand. And babies can tell us that they are at least understanding what we say at some level by the behaviors in which they respond to what we say. So if we say to a baby, wave bye-bye, babies will respond by waving bye-bye. If we say, eat your peas, they'll respond by picking up their peas. If we say, where's mommy, they'll turn around and look for mommy. And so they tell us at some level that they understand what we say. And so what researchers have done is they've asked parents to check off on lists of words what babies commonly respond to. And so we have a pretty good idea of the words that babies respond to very early in development, even before they speak. And so we decided to do something similar with dogs. We generated a list of words by going to pet stores and looking at what's sold for dogs, thinking of locations where dogs might be, so parks and vets and cars and so forth. We looked for lists of commands online in obedience training classes or typical words that are used in different sports with dogs, like agility training. And so we gathered this big list of words that we got from those sources, as well as from ourselves with our own experience with dogs and other people that we asked about.
How many dogs were involved in the study? And was it a variety of dogs, big dogs, small dogs, different breeds? And where did they come from?
So we recruited the dogs online, well, their owners, and we targeted a variety of different places online, group sites that they might be interested in. And we included in that group, we look for dog owners that also train service dogs or work with dogs in different capacities. And so we try to get a variety of dogs of different breeds and a variety of owners who work with dogs in different ways. So we had 175 dogs, and we presented them with a list of 172 words.
Do they understand?
Did they understand? I mean, did they know their name? Did tone of voice or male and female subjects do better with their dogs?
We didn't see any difference between male and female owners in what they reported. We had more women who did our survey than men, but there were no differences that we could detect between them. In terms of the number of words, we found that family pets tended to respond to about 80 words according to their owners, whereas service dogs, so dogs trained for search and rescue, scent detection, herding, they tended to respond to about 120 words. Training seemed to be a very big predictor of the number of words that dogs respond to. And we found that what they tend to respond to is action words. So dogs tend to respond to a lot of action words compared to human babies. So human babies tend to respond to a lot of object words. So they know a lot of words for places, people, and things.
So what about intonation, or the way that the word is presented in a rapid frequency, or whether with intensity or with anger
Yeah,
with
and that's
happiness.
a good point, because I'm thinking if you're talking about action words, it's usually
Yeah.
when you come home and you find her, get off the couch, you
Yeah.
tell your dog, get off the couch.
Well, we think there's some words that the dogs might recognize irrespective of context, irrespective of who's saying it or the intonation, like their names, or the word sit was a very common one. But there are probably some words that they're learning to recognize or to predict what's going to happen based on the intonation in which the word's said or where it's said. So if you're by the front door and you have the dog's leash in your hands and you say, do you want to go for a walk? The dog learns to recognize that phrase as a predictor of what's going to happen. So it tells them there's an event that's going to happen. If you're standing by the door and you say, go pee, the dog might recognize that as a cue for something different. So intonation probably matters for certain kinds of words and phrases. And more so than the actual words. So if you say to a dog, oh, you're such a good dog, versus, oh, you're such a bad dog, they might not recognize that distinction, right? They're paying attention to the intonation in that context.
So did some breeds of dogs respond better than others?
We had 165 dogs, and 91 of them were purebreds, according to their owners. We didn't have enough dogs of any one breed to be able to tell if there were actual breed differences. But we did classify the dogs in terms of breed groups, whether they were hounds or terrier dogs or herding dogs. And what we found was that the herding dogs tended to respond to more words according to their owners, as did companion dogs. And both those breed groups are bred to spend a lot of time interacting with human beings compared to terriers that are bred to, or at least were initially bred to detect vermin. So there are differences probably across the breeds based on what they were bred to do or in terms of their interaction with humans.
Did any of the dogs exhibit any cognitive control or behavioral control?
Well, that very first study that we just published, that was just done online, and it was just about the words that dogs respond to. But what we're doing now is we had 100 dogs come into our lab, and we assessed them on measures of behavioral control and measures of search abilities. And we compare them. What we're now doing is we're coding those video recordings of what we measured in dogs, and we're going to look at whether or not there are differences in the behaviors of dogs or their ability to search for hidden objects, if that differs by the number of words their owners report. But we don't yet know the answers to those questions.
Can pet owners and the rest of the listening audience, what can they take away from this research?
Owners who spend a lot of time with their dogs, so they participate in sports like agility training, that seemed to be the biggest predictor of the number of words, as did professional status of the dog, whether they actually had a job. So if you have a lot of time and you want to teach your dogs a lot of different tricks and stuff, probably most dogs will learn those eventually if you have the time, but not everybody has the time. And it probably doesn't matter how many words your dog respond to. If their goal in life is to be your companion, the number of words probably doesn't matter in the end. So that would be my takeaway is if you have the time and you want to train your dog, they'll probably learn it, but it's okay if they don't.
I can't wait to practice this next week with many of the listeners that come from my practice that are going to come in and tell me, I listened to that and I know that Poopsie is really smart. I listened to that. I know that it's going to be, because they're going to tell me that anyway. But now that they've listened to you, they have proof that Poopsie is really smart. Dr. Jacque, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you give us your website where we and the rest of our listeners can learn more?
Probably the easiest place to find us is on Facebook. We have a group called the Early Learning Lab, and so you can probably find us there.
Great.
Thanks for viewing our content on Pet Buzz Plus.